sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. This is MacDonald Carey, and these are the days of our lives.
G'day guys, my name's Ken. I took part in the Perth leg of the Million Mask March for the Anonymous group yesterday in Western Australia. I had a short document prepared which I was hoping to get a chance to read at least some of to the media if they bothered to show up and cover anything that happened during that particular event. None of them rocked up. The reason I'm not wearing this little mask here, well, there's actually a few. Number one, voice doesn't come through particularly clearly when you're wearing it. Number two, I don't care if the government knows who I am anyway, so I don't need to hide behind this thing. And really, at the end of the day, if I do have this thing on, the public won't know who I am. The government will have no trouble at all tracking down who uploads this video, so I'm not going to achieve anything. I'm still going to be having the officials, if they want to come after me, come after me. I'll quickly read you the document, or try to quickly read it. It's probably about 15 minutes worth, which I had prepared. I'll probably ad-lib bits and pieces of it because the original version of this thing was over double the size, so there's a lot that's been left out. Okay. We the people participating in this march are sick and tired of being sick and tired of all the lies, the deceit, the propaganda and corruption our morally bankrupt elected officials seem to believe they have some God-given right to use against us. A simple fact which our elected officials seem to forget is that we the people, that's us guys, we own the government. The government does not own us. If the elected officials are not acting in the best interests of us, of we the people, then we have the right to remove them from power and replace them with someone who will look after our best interests, and not just the interests of those elitists who clearly pull the strings on these puppets who we elect as leaders. We're sick and tired of the complete lack of transparency within the corridors of power on all matters which affect our daily lives. A world where the governments believe they have the right to spy on our internet communications, to record our personal phone calls, to log every single keystroke that we make. Now this move is estimated to cost every Australian an extra $100 per year for our internet costs now. Just so that we can be spied on. We don't want to be spied on, but we have to pay to let the government spy on us. Yet the government officials classify their own communications as top secret. We're sick and tired of being told who we can and cannot associate with, or even what we're allowed to wear. Now that is directed at the Queensland government. There's a guy over there named Campbell Newman who is their premier. The guy is an absolute tool. And he believes that he has the right to tell the members of different bike clubs over there that you're now an outlaw, associating with your friends will get you arrested, wearing these clothes, these particular colours will get you arrested, you'll go to jail until I can be bothered letting you go. As I said, the guy is a tool. He's infringing on lots of people's, civil rights, their basic rights as human beings. We're sick and tired of being labelled conspiracy theorists or crazies, simply because we refuse to believe the obvious lies that we're being spoon-fed, through the government's various media, various controlled media outlets around the world. Now, Fox is probably the worst among them, but there's a lot more. We're sick and tired of the constant, non-stop witch hunts targeting those who are brave enough to speak out and expose the criminal actions of the officials who we entrust with running this country, Australia, as well as other countries around the world. To us, people such as Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, Bradley Manning, and there's lots of others, but they're the three who everybody knows, they are true heroes. Since when has it been unlawful to expose the crimes of any person or organisation or government entity? As far as I'm aware, it's not, but the American government believes that it is, and they are chasing people, putting people behind bars for exposing their criminal actions. If it weren't for the continual breaches of our basic civil rights as world citizens by our governments, then organisations such as WikiLeaks, Julian Assange's group, or these guys here, the Anonymous League, would not exist. Because, well, they'd have no reason to exist. We'd have no reason to exist. And I'm saying we because I'm quite proud to say that I'm actually part of these boys. Okay? The government and the elitists created the problems which are now plaguing our world. So today, we're uniting against their obvious lack of moral compass and putting them on notice. Well, as I said, that was for yesterday, but it's ongoing anyhow. We're sick and tired of those who have everything taking the few meagre possessions from those who have nothing. of living in a world divided into the haves and the have-nots. A world where the 85 wealthiest people have more between them than over 50% of the world's population combined. So if you take the poorest 50% of the world, they've got less between that 50% of the world, which is about 3.5 billion people, have less, between them than the world's 85 richest people. Okay, and those richest people seem to have total impunity when it comes to the blatantly immoral and often illegal means which they use to amass that immense wealth. A world where these few elitists have a total disregard for the people they're trampling over in order to acquire greater control of the almighty dollar, and where the governments allow these absurd, disgusting situations to get worse by the virtue of their inactions. One example which I'm going to use here is the deregulation of the university fees here in Australia, which people overseas may not be aware of. Okay, but this disgusting system has ensured that only the privileged among us will now be able to afford to go into higher education, and it's going to add to the belief, and I'd say it's pretty much the truth now, that the elitists are dumbing down society. If the ordinary guy next door who's actually a brilliant student, for example, but he hasn't got the money to go to school, hasn't got the ability to pay for a university degree, he's going to have to miss out, whereas some absolute douche who's got no brains at all but he's got rich parents can send him to school, send him to university. It's just wrong. Okay. We're sick and tired of living in a world where our governments can find the money to fund endless wars all over the world over things in the ground, oil, rocks, whatever it happens to be, but they refuse to find the money to feed, to clothe, to house the homeless and downtrodden, disenfranchised within our societies. In third world countries, because apparently their lives are just of no value to them, they're completely insignificant. We're sick and tired of a world where the government pretends that they care about the constituents. They give themselves massive pay rises, but at the same time, they're forcing the rest of us to get by a minimum wage because they freeze wages all over the world. We're sick and tired of the large elitist organisations, the banksters, for example, lobbying the governments to achieve outcomes which will only benefit those elitists and have absolutely no benefit whatsoever to the rest of us. They're of no benefit to our environment, to the other creatures sharing this amazing planet with us, or indeed to the future of this, the future existence of this planet as a whole. We are sick and tired of the lies, the deception, the lack of communication by our governments on matters which directly impact on our lives and our world. Issues such as allowing the industrial operations to start on the Great Barrier Reef, which will undoubtedly lead to the wholesale destruction of sections of this amazing national treasure which every Australian... we love it, it's a great place, but all we need is one ship to screw up and it's going to be wiped out, something like what happened over the Mexican coast a few years ago when the oil rig went down. Any politician who approves any such operations should be immediately removed from their position, and the approval should just be reversed on the spot, no ifs, buts or maybes. Any company who lobbies to carry out any such environmental terrorism should be banned, period, forever, from operating inside of Australian territories, and the directors behind those companies should be charged to the full extent permitted under applicable Australian and international laws. This also goes for operations along the coastlines of Australia where the whales are breeding and migrating. I'm going to stick to another ocean topic here, but it's a local one. So this is to do with Western Australia, but it's got a fair bit of international press. Locally, we're sick and tired of Colin Barnett's unnecessary shark cull program. It's only going to lead to further ruin of the natural balance of the marine life and the fragile ecosystem in which they exist at the moment. And it hasn't been proven to save any lives. It's not going to be proven to save any lives. Sharks swimming in, doing what it does naturally, which is just swimming close to the, close to the shoreline, and it's instantly labelled a possible killer, and they kill it. We're sick and tired of the total lack of foresight our elected officials demonstrate when it comes to the ongoing support of the fossil fuel industries to power our homes, our businesses, our vehicles, the entire world we live in. There's many, many, many safe, environmentally friendly alternatives which they should be embracing. Australia should be following the lead of, if not actually leading the way with using a lot of these alternatives. We're living in a country that has massive amounts of land exposed to sunlight all year round. We could be powering this entire country on solar power without throwing any pollutants into the underground streams or any other pollution up into the air, without having to burn fossil fuels like coal or whatever, which are obviously bad for the environment, bad for the world. Okay, we have areas of this country which are exposed to strong winds all year round that could be used to as like turbine farms instead of relying on fossil fuels. Once again, none of the pollutants, none of the damage to the environment, none of the damage to this planet in the future. Hemp could be grown to create an environmentally friendly and renewable fuel source for vehicles. Okay, instead of using these atmosphere destroying petroleum-based products as we're doing at the moment. It's not anything new. The very first car that Henry Ford made all those years ago was actually made using panels that were made out of hemp. The plastic panels were actually made of hemp, and they were a lot stronger than what the metal panels are. There's video footage of guys smacking into them with a baseball bat and it just bounces back. And the vehicle was fueled by hemp. So it's not like they can say we don't have the technology. The technology has been here for a lot longer than I've been alive, we'll put it that way. Keep it nice and simple. So Mr. Abbott, I'm going to direct this at you, because if this video gets enough hits, you're not going to be able to ignore it. And I'm going to put it on the anonymous video pages, so chances are you will get a few hits, or hopefully I'll get a few hits on it. Fossil fuels such as coal, petroleum-based products, and anything like that, they're not good for mankind. I don't care what you think, they are not good for mankind. They are not good for our future. They're not good for the future of this planet as a whole. You're the current leader of this country. You have the ability, as far as I'm concerned, you have the responsibility to introduce legislation which can rectify the problem as it is at the moment and make Australia a much more environmentally responsible and sustainable nation. I'm going to stay on the topic of hemp for a moment, seeing as how I've got into it. Hemp farming could also be used to create natural, biodegradable, recyclable products instead of the petrochemical-based plastics our world currently relies upon for things such as drinking containers, you know, those plastic containers which everybody buys, you water in or whatever, because those things are piling up in landfill sites all over the world, littering our oceans, littering the streets. They do not break down, they're not biodegradable, not in the short term anyway. You can make, as I said, automotive panels have been made from them, you can make clothing from them, you know, this is cotton, but, you know, hemp is one of the strongest natural fibres on the planet, and it's obviously a lot healthier to wear than most of these synthetics that are available. We're sick and tired of our governments pandering to every wish of the financial backers who only care about their bottom line. I'm going to talk specifically about the pharmaceutical companies who continue to lobby against the the legalisation of natural cannabinoids for medical purposes. Over the past several thousand years, our human body has evolved, and it contains, or possesses, natural cannabinoid receptors. They're obviously a part of our anatomy for a reason. Okay, it's not like we just, we've got these cannabinoid receptors, but we don't need them. They're obviously here for a reason. A multitude of scientific studies have proven that there's many medical benefits from hemp-derived cannabinoid products in the treatment of various ailments which are currently afflicting our modern society. Okay, one example, I'll go through a few of them actually. Okay, the use of cannabinoids has been demonstrated time and again by various scientific studies that it will retard, reverse, and in some cases completely eradicate various cancers. Okay, there's symptoms of Parkinson's disease that have been shown to be greatly improved over and above the current methods using current medications, when cannabinoids are used as part of the treatment or as the treatment instead. Okay, arthritic patients, which are guys like myself, they've actually had some of them report major improvements in the pain management well beyond those of conventional medicines. So if they're using cannabinoids, it just gets rid of the pain factor big time. On the most basic level as a painkiller, according to the scientific research which is available, cannabinoids are suitable for patients suffering from various conditions, in some cases requiring some fairly hefty drugs like morphine and other drug cocktails which have got a lot of side effects and they're not good for the human body at all. Cannabinoids have a lot less side effects, but they're able to do exactly the same job. I'm not talking about smoking a joint. I'm talking about there are other ways of actually extracting the products from the hemp bushes and actually putting them into either capsule form or a gel form or some other way, possibly nasal inhalers. There are ways of getting these things into our system without getting the high that the government is so worried about. Not that I've actually got a problem with guys smoking dope anyway. As far as I'm concerned, it's their business. We're sick and tired of constantly hearing stories about farmers who are struggling to keep the lands which their families have lived on for many generations due to the heavily subsidised imports which are being brought in from other countries. So produce that's coming in out of China and other parts of the world which is generally sprayed with chemicals to make it look like it's still fresh, but most of the nutrients are gone. They've got no value to us at all. Okay, the government's answer seems to be to permit massive amounts of foreign investment, selling off those lands and the livelihoods of the Australian families and forcing them, into another place. So they get forced off the land and go to move in the city. They've got no idea what the hell they're doing there. Maybe the government's response should be to impose something like additional taxes on the imported products and then pass that money across to the farmers in the form of subsidies so that our own farmers can ensure their continued survival into the future, and that will also guarantee that we get good, healthy, locally produced foods to eat as opposed to some of the highly questionable stuff that comes in from overseas. Now, anyone who doesn't know what I mean by questionable stuff that's being grown overseas, look up night soil, which is something that is grown, they use to actually grow produce over in China. I doubt you'll ever eat another piece of fruit or vegetables that comes out of China after that. We're sick and tired of the lack of legislation when it comes to the information on products which we can buy in stores containing genetically modified ingredients. We have the right to know what we're consuming, and the government should enforce a labelling system which clearly addresses this issue in much the same way as it's imposed these anti-smoking messages on every single piece of cigarette paraphernalia you can get. All products containing genetically modified ingredients should be clearly labelled. We should be able to make a conscious decision on whether or not we are prepared to consume those items. It shouldn't be, left down to chance where you're buying something and have no idea whether there's any genetically modified organisms contained in that product. We're sick and tired of the one-sided reporting from our government-controlled media outlets when it comes to lies such as what really happened on 9/11, or the truth behind the recent Malaysian airline disasters. The official stories don't add up. They're so full of holes it's ridiculous. They're not telling the truth. We want to know the truth. We're sick and tired of the blatant two-faced hypocrisy our Western governments, are showing when they condemn things like the Islamic State forces, which they helped to create in some degree. Actually, they supported in some way. They did not want the Assad government in power over in Syria, and these Islamic State fighters were the rebels on the ground fighting against the Assad government. So for the US government, the Australian government, the other Western governments to say, oh, these guys are evil, hey, grow up. You guys created this Frankenstein's monster, or at least in some way helped to create it. You've given it life, you've put power into it. You can't suddenly pull the plug and say, hey, I want this thing to go away. It's not going to happen. Half the reason why these guys are joining these particular forces is because they are sick of seeing Western forces on the ground over in these Middle Eastern countries killing innocent men, women and children who shouldn't be in the firing line of the Western forces in the first place. We shouldn't be over there. We should never have gone over there. 9/11 was a hoax, and we know for a fact that the weapons of mass destruction story which the American government used as their cover to go into the Middle East was a lie. We're sick and tired of the double standards these same governments demonstrate when they condemn the way women will apparently be treated as second-class citizens by Islamic State. And I'm going to use Saudi Arabia here. In fact, I'm going to use Saudi Arabia for a couple of things. The government's condemning the beheading of prisoners by ISIS. Saudi Arabian government, who's a Western ally over in the Middle East, beheaded something like 20 prisoners in the last month alone. Okay. As for the women as second-class citizens, got that one stuffed up. Saudi Arabia, women cannot drive a car. They've only just gotten permission to actually use a fork to eat with over there. Don't know how the hell that one happened. They cannot be seen in public without a male member of their immediate family escorting them. I mean, we cannot condemn what one particular group is doing and then turn a blind eye to a government who we regard as an ally who is doing exactly the same things. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit closer to home. Australia, the UK, America, it is not uncommon at all for a female worker doing exactly the same job as her male colleagues to be getting paid a lower rate of pay than the male colleagues. Could be 10, 15, 20, 30% difference for exactly the same job. Our own women are being treated as second-class citizens, so stop trying to pretend that these guys are going to be any worse than what our governments are. We're sick and tired of the United States government believing it has the right to declare any nation a rogue state simply because they decide to move away from the petrodollar deal, which has been in existence for the last 40-odd years and propping up the American economy. The declaration usually leads to an invasion of those countries. Think about Libya a couple of years ago. The summary executions and assassinations of the leaders, once again, Gaddafi, okay, and then a Western-controlled puppet government is placed into power. I'm not really sure if that happened over there because the place is in complete chaos, but I'll address that one now. We're sick and tired of America introducing its own very special brand of freedom and democracy to countries which are functioning perfectly well before the United States forces enter, blow them to pieces, kill thousands of innocent people, if not hundreds of thousands of innocent people, and leave those states in complete financial ruin and political chaos, simply to protect the all-important United States economy. That's criminal. We're sick and tired of being made to pay for the criminal actions of the elitists whose greed forced the entire world economy to collapse with the GFC a few years ago. Now, we the people did not create those problems. We did not create the situation we're currently in. They were the direct result of short-sighted greed by certain money-hungry power brokers who ruined the lives of millions and millions of people. They destroyed millions of families. They put a lot of people out in the street. They cost jobs all over the world. Yet these freaks, and that's all I'm going to refer to them as, are still living in their luxury mansions, they're driving around in their fancy cars, they're living like kings and queens, whilst the rest of us are being made, the working class minions, which is what I'm going to refer to us as, because that's what they're using us as, of the world, being forced to pay for their greed and their financial mismanagement with higher taxes and a lower standard of living. That's criminal. The fact that our government is allowing them to get away with it, as far as I'm concerned, is treason against the people who voted for them. We're sick and tired of how all the world governments are controlled by the likes of the Rothschilds, the Reinhardts, the Murdochs. There's a lot of them out there. There's, there's a few families that basically, they get everything and the rest of us get nothing. And the governments are only looking after the needs of those people to the detriment of the rest of society. I'll finish off by reading 2 paragraphs from the posters which were circulated around Perth and the brochures that were circulated around Perth for our Million Mask March. So that's these boys, the Anonymous League, yesterday. Okay, we peacefully protest our government in efforts to stop the blatant abuse of power. We are against the increasing infringement of our rights with overreaching laws, against our government making secretive agreements, both nationally and internationally, against the draconian surveillance and data retention. Together with our kids, our parents, brothers and sisters, neighbours and workmates, the homeless and the disenfranchised, we stand. Our freedom will no longer be trampled. The war crimes will no longer go unpunished. Australia will no longer pay for the corrupt politicians. The banksters and arms dealers will no longer profit off our backs. We must stop the discrimination and the bloodshed. As I said earlier, guys, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's time for us to take back our freedoms from those who've been stealing them away from us. We, the people, own the governments. Okay? The anonymous group are actually on your side, whether or not you want to believe it. Okay? We own the governments do not own us. If you don't want them in power, get rid of them. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Tony Abbott, Colin Barnett, Campbell Newman, any other corrupt officials, so we could have Hocking, Buswell, there's a lot of you out there. Expect us, because your days in government are numbered. It's time for the people to take back the powers that you guys are abusing. Peace, everybody. Goodbye.